Mic check. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Alhamdulillah alamin wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidina al-anbiya wal mursalin nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. So last time we had, I think we started talking about wealth, right? We had started talking about wealth, and we had said that here Ghazāli, he actually talks about two elements of wealth. He says that there are praiseworthy elements to it, and there are condemned elements to it. And what did he base that off of? I'm sorry? Your intention, right? Intention meaning? So I guess there are two layers, right, with wealth. The first one is how I spend it. So if I use it to buy a shirt, for example, is that okay or no? To buy a shirt. I mean, even the color you're going to get makruh at worst. Huh? I'm buying a shirt. What is the hukam? Is it halal, haram? Mostly halal. Right, so there might be some haram uses for a shirt that we'll discover later. So I'm using it to buy a shirt. Sure, it's halal. But now, did I use it in a good way? Right? It's halal. It's a halal purchase. Did I do it in a good way or not? So far. But it's dependent on, like you said, it's dependent on my intention. Right? This is something that's really important. Tayyib. That is intention dependent. Tayyib. If I use it to buy drugs, does it matter what my intention is? Like, my intention is to remove it from the streets. I want to buy it so nobody else takes advantage. Huh? No? It doesn't work? Huh? You think it does? Allahu Akbar. A what?
What if it's like a cop or something?
The guy's a cop and then I go to jail?
No, I'm saying like if he buys the drugs, not
to remove it from the streets?
Worst one I heard was trying to get closer to God, It makes me closer to God.
It makes me closer to God. Like when I become more spiritual when I take the shrooms. No. So what you're talking about is a very specific case use, and that's more of a thing, because the thing is the money is never actually transferred. It's illegal even in the U.S. government to purchase drugs, even as a DEA officer, FBI, or whatever the case might be. So saying that, there are clear cases where it's haram, and at that point it's irrelevant what your intention is. So the space that we are talking about and discussing is only when you have halal purchases, right? When we talk about things that are halal. He also mentions it this way. So here he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes money as khair. And we said khair, what does khair mean? It means good. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's actually describing money as good. In this regard, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about money that we leave behind, why do you think He would describe it as good?
Beneficial to your family to beg.
Right? And okay, your family doesn't have to beg, definitely, right? You have a hadith, Sa'ad Mu'adh, very clear, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that it's better that you leave money in your family than allow them to beg in the streets. We have these very clear hadith. So, but here, this is a perspective from the one who is receiving it. What about the one who is leaving it behind? So, we're all going to die, right? And it's important for us. When I look at this ayah, as someone who has a family and children, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe this? He describes this money as khair. What kind of mindset should that prepare me for? Or what should I do? I should have money, right? Because if I'm not leaving behind money, then I don't have any khair, right? I don't have any good. And this is something that's important. That in order that I have to have this mindset where I will leave behind something for my family. And I will have something that is prepared for them. Why? I want to be part of this khair. I want to be part of this good. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, the best of righteous wealth is from a righteous man. And why did we say that is? Because of the way he's going to spend it, right? If somebody is righteous, he's going to spend his money in a righteous way. And there are many rewards that talk about, so here he talks about sadaqah and he talks about hajj. What does that have to do with money? You need money to give sadaqah, right? You need money to give sadaqah, you need money to make hajj. So he's saying, in all of these verses, money has become what? It's not just essential, it's what, if you look at this entire process? It's good? Allahu Akbar. I think, for sure, it's good. I agree with you. But it's a tool, right? If we look at all these, it's a tool or it's a means to arrive at a certain conclusion or a certain end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَسْتَخْرِجَ كَنْزَهُمَ رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ. That, and then dig up their treasure as a mercy from your Lord. So over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes this treasure as what? As a mercy. So we have two terms. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses khair, He uses good, and He uses rahmah, He uses mercy. So why is it that people fight so much over wealth? Because they're not merciful. They're not good. They're not good and they're not merciful. Money is what? I'm sorry? The root of all evil. Allah Akbar.
People might fight over it if they need something.
Okay, so people fight over money. But if that's a tool, for sure, and people might fight over it, other things will happen to it. But I'm saying, what is the ruling on money itself? Is money evil? No, money is what? Money can be a distraction, right? But in and of itself, it is what? This is the thing, it's benign, right? Money is benign. Money itself is not going to be good or bad, but the use will be good or bad. Very simply. We have a number of use cases here in which money is used, right? When I give sadaqah, money is good. When I leave it behind for my family after I pass away, it is good, right? Not just good. In some, here it's described as a rahmah. Over here it's described as a mercy. And if a person is righteous, then ideally he will use that money in a righteous way. Here you also have another hadith that poverty is almost disbelief. Why? Right? It can put you in a compromising situation, right? Because when I'm in a state of poverty, I might do things that what? That normally I wouldn't do, right? Things that I would do if I was financially stable, I might not make those same decisions, I might not do those things. And if in poverty, I might be forced to do things I don't want to, and that I wasn't normally comfortable doing. So it's important to understand that there is a balance that exists there, because just because we have all of these narrations and we have all these ayat that talk about and praise wealth, it doesn't mean money in and of itself is praiseworthy. And if we understand that it's a tool, tools can be used for good and for bad, right? Just like a knife, right? I can use a knife to cut fruits, I can use it to cut vegetables, I can use it to cut meat, and I can also use it to hurt others. Again, just a tool. So where's the balance? The balance, like he had mentioned in the last book, was focusing on the next world. Because if I focus on the next world, I'm going to spend how? I'm going to spend wisely. I'm going to spend in a way that is going to serve my transition to the next world. And where I'm going to put my money, I'm going to put it in those things that is going to help me get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that I can reach my final abode. So it was said to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who are the most generous and intelligent people? He sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the ones who remember death the most, and the ones most prepared for it. And we had touched on this last time, but why death? Why is it important to remember death?
It's real close, don't you think?
All right, death is closer than we think. What else? What is it about death that is different from all other things? It's personal, right? You can't take money with you. It's what? After that, actions are finished. And if we understand that at death, I'm not going to take any of my wealth with me, how am I going to use it? Right, I'm going to use it very differently. I'm going to try to use it as wisely as I can. Why? Because I know this isn't going to be part of my journey. Money is only going to take us until we get to our graves. And at that point, how much of my money do I use? Zero, right? I'm in the ground. I can't use it. It's done. So what happens to that money? It's redistributed to my inheritors. So how can this happiness be attained? And he says that there are actually three ways to attain happiness. He says the virtues of self, the virtues of the body, and virtues outside the body. And he gave some examples of this. He says virtues of the self, how do I better myself? Through knowledge and good character. And how do I have virtues of the body? Through health and safety. And outside the body, like wealth and other means, and all of these are tools. All of these things are tools. But focusing on this is better than focusing on this. Did the pointer just die? Or did my, okay, there we go. Is better than this, which is better than this. So if we looked at the thing that I should try and focus on most, it is bettering what? Bettering my nafs, bettering myself. And how do I do that? Through knowledge and through ilm and khuluq, right? Through knowledge and good character. So this focus on outside of the body, look at it, it is actually, there are a number of specific things that are there. The lowest of the things that are focused on, so we said that this is in order, right? So the highest being the self, then the body, then outside the body. From the lowest of those things is wealth. And from the lowest type of wealth are gold and silver. Why? Because gold and silver, these are the things that actually embody the idea of wealth. Right? Gold and silver in and of themselves, these embody this concept and this idea of wealth. And we have to understand that gold and silver, at the end of the day, are just a means. Gold and silver in and of themselves, they don't have a lot of use value. Silver maybe in like conductors, but in general, there's no mass value to these two types of metals. And he said, versus focusing on myself. So when I focus on myself, this is actually the highest, right? So over here, this is the lowest. The highest is when I focus on my nafs, and I focus on myself. And if I focus alone, he's saying that this is how true happiness is attained. And what are those things? Knowledge and good character. And he said, and on top of that, if I understand what the role of the body is, the body should serve the nafs, right? It should serve the self. And what does it do? It has two main, through the senses and through the organs. This is all the body is. So through the senses, it gives me an idea of the space and the world around me. And through my organs and through nourishment, it allows me to sustain and maintain. So if we look at these things, why is it that we have to focus? What is it that knowledge and khuluq allow or that give me happiness? Okay, well, knowledge leads to action for sure, and knowledge in and of itself can be action. But what is it about knowledge that will make me happy? What are the elements to ilm? Ilm is supposed to increase me in what? In taqwa and iman. Why? What is it about ilm that does that? Okay, it brings me closer to Allah, taqwa, all these things. Why? Knowing more does what? Okay, if I know more, there's more intention? Okay, there's better understanding? Maybe, I could see that. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, ilm is light.
Ilm is nur? Yes.
So you understand like the purpose of gravity.
Okay, you start understanding purpose. I'm hearing this word understanding. This idea of understanding, I definitely agree with you guys. If we look at it essentially, this is what, like, Iman is closely linked to yaqeen. What is yaqeen? I'm sorry? Certainty, right? This conviction. Where does conviction come from? How am I sure that this is right? Huh? Through knowledge, right? It's through ilm. The more I learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more what? Why am I closer? The more I'm what? I'm more certain. I'm more convinced. Right? This relationship between iman and yaqeen and conviction is like these things that the more knowledge I have, the more I'm convinced that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is real. The more I'm convinced in the truth of Islam. The more I'm convinced in the Sharia. The more I'm convinced of this religion. Right? These are all the things, and this is the conviction that ilm is supposed to bring me. Makes sense to me. Like, what about khuluq? What about good character? How does that bring me happiness? What is khuluq? Yes? Okay. It's a guide to what?
Towards, it's a path. So I think this journey that we have to have values that inform the actions that you take. And
Okay.
the more aligned you are with the character of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to adopt, then the more easy probably your life will be. If you surrender to them.
Okay. I think everything you said is a good idea, but I'm still grasping on what is khuluq. Because you're saying khuluq is a path. Yes? Did I understand correctly?
Like the attribute.
Okay. That's a synonym. You're using synonyms now. No, which is fine. This is good. Yes?
You fear Allah.
Okay.
So the action is like that. You have to do the you have. Kind of leading to your.
So you're saying there's a link. There's a link between knowledge and khuluq. What? What is that link? So what is khuluq? I'm sorry? Servitude. It's a good word. Yes. The way people see. Okay, I think you're the closest so far. Yes. Yes. The way we deal with people. That's exactly what khuluq is. Like, so if I make people better, I get happier. Okay. How?
Because I know the reward from Allah that I'm going to get.
Okay. Good. Right. You become more humble. Good. What else is it? Yes. Okay. Right. So this idea of just being a good person and exerting goodness, you bring a lot of positive energy, right? And this is a real thing. So this idea of having good khuluq and this idea of having good character, in summary, means having good what? Relations. Ahsantum. And if I want to see if all this knowledge that I'm getting and all this knowledge that I'm learning and this yaqeen that I feel I'm attaining, how do I tell if I'm actually attaining it?
You'll be surrounded by community. You'll build relationships.
You're getting like really close. It's a good answer. Yes.
Reality, you see your interactions, you
Uh-huh.
see the impact you have on people.
On the people around us, right? If I want to judge my ilm, if I want to judge my yaqeen and my certainty and all of these things, all I have to do is look at the relations around me. Very simply. Now, does it mean I'll still have a few bad relationships? Yes, absolutely. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. But in general, and this is something that we can all use to gauge ourselves. If I find that I have a problem with this person, and this person, and this person, and this person, I've had a bad experience with this person, and I got into a fight with this person, and I argue with this person, and this person is stupid, and this person is ugly, and this person, and this person, and this person. What is the commonality between these 10 people? Me. And now, instead of looking at them, where should I be looking? I should be looking in the mirror. Right? I should be looking in the mirror like, okay, it's not possible, the whole world is wrong, and the whole world has problems. Yes, no. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, for sure. There's something is not right. And even, subhanAllah, so the number of people that have come to me for like consultations and they'll be like, well, just bad things keep happening to me. Is it because of ayn? Is it because of the evil eye? Is it because of magic? Is it because of jinn? And usually what the case is? Bad choices. Honestly, it's usually bad choices. And why are they making bad choices? Because of the ayn. Ahsant. Perfect, right? Knowledge, right? So, in summary, if I want to make good choices, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me two huge, major tools. What are those tools? I mean, the Quran and Sunnah for sure. There's no doubt about that, right? That gives me a guide into what's right and what's wrong. But in the Quran and the Sunnah, Allah has given me tools. Seeking counsel, istishara. What else? I'm sorry? Well, that you're going to help. That's going to help you choose good counsel. What else? Huh? I'm sorry? Reading. Okay, that's part of it. Right, that's part of knowledge. But there's something else. Repenting is part of it too. But you're getting closer. Coming to see me. That's part of counsel, right? I might not have all the answers. I probably don't.
Maybe acknowledging and then going back.
So when I seek counsel, what am I acknowledging? Right? That I don't have the knowledge for this and I need more information. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to other people. And ideally that should make me more humble. Right? Ideally. Some people will be like, oh, I asked like 10 people, they're all stupid. Right? Those such people exist too. But the two things I need to do istishara. Right? I need to seek counsel. And that's seeking counsel with people. And the second thing I need to do is do istikhara. Right? I have to seek counsel with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I do these two tools, most of the time, my decisions will be sound. Most of the time. Is it possible that, people give bad advice? Yeah, absolutely. And it happens. But the chances of that bad decisions happening more often than not using this method, it's little. It's very small. Yes? You disagree with? The book?
Yeah, the good character thing, leading to happiness.
Yeah.
By being other people with a relationship with them, or whatever we said. But I think would be a better, I could say, if it was knowledge, knowledge of Allah, and then acting on knowledge.
What do you think good character is?
Good character is
That's a manifestation of your knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? That's what khuluq is. Khuluq is and where does it come out? It's going to come out in your actions. Now, is it possible I have good character in a vacuum?
No.
Yes.
Right? No, like if I'm by myself and there's nobody around me in the world, how do I know if I'm honest? How do I know if I'm upright? How do I know I'm not a cheater? How do I, there's no way those things. And the only way to know them is when I actually what? When I interact and I deal with people. And this is why it's important for Muslims to what? To be a community. Like we have to. Because we have to deal with each other. Why? If not for the community, but at least for myself. So I can see where I'm at. And I can gauge myself. How am I interacting with people? If every person I'm interacting with, I'm looking down on him, and I think that these people are, where's the problem? The problem is me. And I really need to reanalyze that. I need to judge who I am. I need to see who I am. And I have to understand who I am. And sometimes that humility is very difficult for us. And a very simple question. Like if we asked ourselves, how would you rate yourself? And this is the question that we hear all the time. And I'm telling myself 10 every time. How's my personality? 10. How are my looks? 10. Oh, there is a problem there. And there's an issue there. And I'm not being honest with myself. And when I'm not being honest with myself, I'm not going to attain sa'adah. I'm not going to attain happiness. Because it's only through knowing myself and knowing my Lord that I can attain true happiness. And how do I know Allah? I know Him through this. How do I know myself? Through this. So that wealth is, if I understand that it has value and there's honor that's associated with it, that value and honor only comes about because there is a need, only for the need. Meaning that when I go beyond that need, I've now stripped that wealth of what? Of its value and its honor. And how do I define needs? I define it through food and clothing. We had talked about this previously, right? So the basic, essential human needs that I have, this is how I use money in an honorable way. Yeah, well, like I said, we've spoken about this before. So food, clothing, and shelter, all of these things are included in that. And if I'm able to identify these needs, and we had said, how do I determine what is a good and a bad need? How do I determine a need? I'm sorry? Right, this is a personal thing, number one, right? So how do I know I've entered israf? How do I know I've entered extra? Right? Huh? How do I determine need? Can I survive without it? I don't know. You were there for class. Yes.
Take care of your family and plus.
Ahsan. So the first criteria has to do. First set of criteria has to do with the rights. Yes. Which rights are we talking about? Rights of Allah and the rights of the people. Right? As long as I'm fulfilling these two things, I've fulfilled the first criteria and I have not fallen into israf. And what is the second major criteria? Of course, they're not people. What are they? Aliens? Jinn? What is the second criteria? This second set of criteria is my personal gauge. And for example, someone might be like, well, do you need a bed to survive? You don't. So I might not need a bed to survive, but if I'm waking up with aches and pains, is it helping my prayer? No, it's not. And someone might be like, you spent $800 on a mattress. Well, it's like, yeah, I had a friend who I had this argument with one time. He's like, man, I had back surgery. Like, I can't sleep on a normal bed. And I felt stupid, right? Having that. But we have to understand, like, there are different perspectives in learning how to deal with each other and deal with others. And understanding that gauge of israf is a very personal way of dealing with how to spend our money. So as long as I'm fulfilling Allah's rights by giving zakat and sadaqah, as long as I'm fulfilling Allah's rights by giving them the money that they need, then I go to my personal gauge and I decide at that point, what level do I need? Because, subhanAllah, in the dunya, we'll find everything has a spectrum. There are low-end cars and there are high-end cars. There are low-end houses, there are high-end houses. There's low-end clothing and there's high-end clothing. Where am I going to be in that? Whatever makes me comfortable and brings me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and allows me to worship more effectively, that's where I need to figure that out. That's where I need to stand. So figuring out the need is the goal, right? So this is something we're always striving for and something that we're always working toward, figuring out, okay, where am I at? Like, where do I fall? And this requires a lot of trial and error. And the best way to do that, according to Ghazāli, is what? We're talking about wealth. What is the best way for me to determine where I'm supposed to be and how much I should spend? Ahsant. I need to strip back as far possible as possible. Right? I have to get to my lowest threshold. And why do we need to get to the lowest threshold? That's the only way to reset that gauge. Right? That personal gauge that we have, the only way to reset any gauge is to what? To bring it back to zero. Right? So you guys know when, you guys are all, mashallah, you guys are all young. But back in my day, you know what I mean? Like, you had to twist the odometer until it went back to zero. But, so now, I don't know, do you guys even push buttons anymore, or does it do it automatically? I don't know.
What's the odometer?
What's an odometer? Okay. When you get a car, inshallah, we'll talk about it. But but to reset that odometer, I have to reset it in order to determine the age. And why do I reset it? I don't even know how many of you know that. But for some people, because they're judging distances, for some people, how far can I go on a tank of gas? Right? So it's the same thing with us. In order for me to figure out how far I can go, I need to learn to cut back as much as possible in order to kind of help reset my personal gauge. Because if I never reset it, my gauge is always going to be off. It's always going to be skewed. So if I understand these needs, I understand the goal and the purpose behind those things. And we said that wealth is a tool. Right? Wealth is a tool. And if it's used in a bad way, it prevents me from what? It prevents me from knowledge and action. And if I use wealth in a bad way, it prevents me from knowledge and action, which ultimately prevents me from the hereafter, getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I understand this, that it prevents me from the hereafter, if I it is actually a means for me what? To get knowledge and to have good character and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. So it says, depending on the nature of an individual, because everybody has a different inclination, the more it is for me. And I understand that we find this is why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? He said, "Oh Allah, provide for the family of Muhammad their sustenance." And what did he mean by this? He says, whatever you have given us and whatever you had provided us, put our hearts at ease. And this is what he sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he's using as an example, setting for himself so that we can learn and say, whatever it is that Allah gives you in that moment, learn to be satisfied and learn to be happy. Because once an individual reaches that stage, it doesn't matter how much more he gets. He'll always learn how to be satisfied with what he has. Does this mean that I strive for more? No. It just means in the moment that Allah has given me, I have to learn and I have to train myself to be satisfied. And he says that an individual should not seek good with that which is good. So over here we have a hadith in Tirmidhi. It says, Allah caused me to live needy and caused me to die needy and gather me in the group of the needy on the day of resurrection. Aisha said, why Messenger of Allah? He said, indeed, they enter paradise before the rich by 40 autumns. Aisha, do not turn away the needy even with a piece of date. Aisha, love the needy and be near them, for indeed Allah will make you near on the day of judgment. What do you think about this hadith? Sounds what? Huh? Why do you think that? Huh? It's in Tirmidhi, but do you think this is problematic or do you think it's okay? It's okay as advice.
But you said earlier, you said there's pad and mercy and there's putting wealth and having wealth. So
it's kind of contradictory, right?
A little bit.
Imam al-Tirmidhi says this hadith is gharib. He even says the hadith is strange. Why? What is strange about it? Does it mention?
What you mentioned exactly, but I think...
Are there good pieces of advice here? Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But I think the neediness is really needing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about it, if you live needy of people,
Yeah.
and it's like, where's the Muslim, stronger Muslim?
So you have a hadith that actually opposite to that, and I'll get to you inshallah. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Al-had al-yad al-ulya khayrun min al-yad al-sufla." Right? So the giving hand is better than the receiving one. So you have clear hadith about being in a position where you are financially stable is something that is praiseworthy.
What I find strange is that, not strange, but interesting is that indeed they enter paradise before the rich by 40 times. So you're saying that those in poverty enter paradise.
Yeah, so I mean, you have different hadith to show that most of the people of paradise are those who are poor. But also, most of mankind in history has been poor, right? Like, so it's just a numbers game at that point. Saying that, if we take this to actually mean faqr, the Prophet ﷺ, did he ever encourage us to seek poverty? No, right? It's actually discouraged. It's not something that's encouraged, which is why the hadith is a little strange for me. Does this mean that, so me as an individual, should I try to spend time with people who are wealthier than me or poorer than me? Why?
So I don't feel frustrated about
Right, so I don't feel frustrated about my situation, right? You thought the opposite? So you can earn more? Learn more? But do you, here, let me put it this way. If I hang out with rich people, Am I going to learn how to be rich because of their habits?
Not necessarily, but from talking.
That's different. So there's a difference between socializing and enjoyment with the rich versus sitting down and seeking counsel from them. Because there has yet to be, and this is my personal experience, I have yet to go to somebody who's wealthy asking them for advice, and they haven't given it to me. If I have business strategies, general advice, how to be with my wealth, they'll sit down and they'll actually be like, well, these are some of the things you should look at, these are some of the things you should think about. Sometimes I take the advice, sometimes I don't. But does it mean I'm going to go hang out with them on their yacht? No. And why don't I want to do that? Because I want a yacht too, right? And there are certain things, like your heart becomes inclined to these things. And that's why it's important to always be with the people who have less, so it just appreciate what it is that I have. So here, قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا بلد آمنا وجنوبني وبني أن نعبد الأصنام. So this is like a really weird tafsir that Ghazāli presents. He says here, remember when Ibrahim said, Lord, make this town safe, preserve me and offspring from paganism, from idolatry. So he says idolatry means gold and silver. Like, protect me from worshipping gold and silver. Worship, meaning that loving, honoring. He says why? Because this is above what a prophet would ask for. Right? A prophet would never worry about worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So because it's not becoming, he's talking about gold and silver. But you have other verses that say, وَجَعَلْنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, make me from the Muslims, and stuff like that. So it doesn't really fit. I looked in a few tafsir, I didn't see this tafsir anywhere. So this is a very uniquely Ghazālian understanding of this. But this hadith is like, huh?
It makes sense in a way, because people can treat wealth like they're worshiping.
Sure, but over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about ibadat al-asnam, right, worshipping stones, like statues, it's a tough. In general, is it bad? Like, should we give value to gold and silver? Honor it and love it? No, right? That's problematic. Do I need to use verse to prove that? No, that's where I have an issue. But over here, you have a clear hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, right? This hadith is clear, and it gives us a lot of context, and it actually drives home the point that we're trying to make, where he says, let the slave of the dinar, dirham, and of khamisa perish. Khamisa, I think, is like, it's a coin. Perish as pleased if these things are given to him, and if not, he is displeased. Meaning that his happiness and sadness is dependent on what? On wealth, right? If he gets money, he is happy, and when he loses it, he's sad. You were going to say something, Ibrahim? Yeah. Yes. I don't know, man. It's like, I just thought it was weird, huh? I mean, man, it's far, bro. So this love of wealth, right? If an individual loves wealth, so this is now Ghazāli's it's not his breakdown. It's basically, I don't know how to express that in English, but it's like ilzam. So like, if you believe this, then you must also believe that, right? So this is his presentation of it. He says, so if you love wealth, that means you really love stones, right? Right? Yeah. And stones are actually idols, and meaning of idol. And if you love idols, then this is shirk. And he was like, okay, well, I kind of cornered myself here, because loving gold and silver can't actually be shirk. So shirk is of two types, right? There's the shirk, what do you call it? That this is. So love of wealth, this can actually be a type of minor shirk. And he says, may Allah protect both. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us. But next time, this is chapter 3, the virtues and vices of wealth. Yeah, so he's going to talk more about the condemnation of wealth next time, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. But I'll see you guys next week. Any questions before we end? Yes? Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. So the Prophet said, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنًا وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So Allah, the Prophet, he asked for good in this world. There's nothing wrong with wanting more, right? There's nothing wrong. The only thing is, like, we should ask for is when we ask for wealth, we say, Ya Allah, give us wealth, but do not use it as a means to test us, right? And I think it's important also for us to kind of develop exercises like from these discussions where we learn not to love wealth, right? You know, wealth should be in our hands, it should not be in our, and understanding what it is, right? If you understand, this is just a means. It's just a way for me to get Jannah, and if I keep it there, inshallah, I won't have to worry about spending it in the wrong way. Any other questions?
No, I think it makes a big difference because we are in a society that really, in general,
Throughout the world. Right? I know a lot of us, they like saying like, oh, you know, America, capitalist, but it's like, where are you going to world today where people aren't?
Well, at least there's not much corruption.
I agree.
Yeah, back home.
North Korea? Yeah. No, but I'm saying even in those places where there's poverty, they still they would still strive for what?
How do they become poor?
But you know what?
Communism.
Yes. I think that on itself is the way to be empowered because in Morocco, for example,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't work, for example, the land.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it's a lot of work, whatever. But the land is so rich.
Yeah,
A
subhanAllah.
lot of stuff. I'm not this one country, but
Yeah.
I think it's this mentality. If your intention is towards that kind of wealth, then you don't see the real wealth that you have.
Yeah. No, we lose appreciation for a lot of the things, and we lose perspective. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Yes.
So the hadith about the man's wealth being like more beloved, that hadith is it like the wealth is spent on his family, or is that generally?
Say that again.
So that hadith that mentioned like a man's wealth is like more beloved. That hadith that was in the script in the pages.
Which one?
This is the American.
This one? Or no? This is about
Yeah, there.
this one. The rest of righteous wealth is from a righteous man.
Yeah. So does this mean like the wealth that he uses for his family?
Yeah, of course. Like anything that we use for good. If I'm not spending money on my family, what am I doing? Right? I'm hurting them. Like this is their right. I'm supposed to give money to my family, to my wife and my children. When I don't give it to them, I'm committing a sin. And if I'm using it to help them for good, right? Or even things sometimes we don't think about. If I'm buying food for my family, this is definitely something that's righteous, right? I'm taking care of them, I'm feeding them, I'm looking after them. Yeah. Does that help? Awesome. Any other questions? Cool. I'll see you guys next week, inshallah. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayh.
This week was kind of similar to last week, I guess, and then at some point it just like built upon.